Honorable Senator Dr. Natalie Chaitan-Maharaj, Parliamentary Secretary in the Ministry of the People, Social Development and Family Services, His Excellency Michael Callan, High Commissioner of Canada to Trinidad and Tobago, Ambassador Bobbery, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of Canada to the United Nations, Dr. Rhonda McEwen, President and Vice-Chancellor of Victoria University in the University of Toronto, and co-chair of the Canada Caribbean Institute, Professor Hilary Beckles, Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Campus Principal of the UWI Centre Gaston Campus, Professor Rosemary Belle Antoine, Presidents and Vice-Chancellors of our CCI member institutions, Ms. Sandrea Maynard, also my co-chair for the morning, Pro-Vice-Chancellor for Global Affairs and for the University of the West Indies, Professor Derek Chady, Deputy Principal, and other members of the Executive Campus Management Team of the St. Augustine Campus, Mr. Calixtus Joseph, Assistant Director, Policy, Strategy, and Innovation for CARICOM Impacts, the CARICOM Implementation Agency for Crime and Security, Mr. Edward Wattle, Founding Member of World Digital Governance, Mr. Carlos Craspi, Acting Commissioner of Prisons, faculty and staff of the University of the West Indies, specially invited guests, online viewing audience, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Please allow me to welcome my co-host, PVC for Global Affairs, Ms. Sandrea Maynard, and our assistant, Adria, who's signing for us this morning. Today marks actually 6 years since the start and the launch of the Canada Caribbean Institute. It was that year that we established CCI as a way to deepen and advance institutional exchange and relations across both regions. It was also that year that we established the Canada Caribbean Research Symposium as a signature event of the Institute, but as a way for cross-institutional collaboration, for exchange, and also for strengthening of the ties that lie between Canada and the Caribbean. That year, I presented as an invited speaker, speaking of a story of a Jamaican single mother, a seasonal migrant worker working in Canada, who used the opportunity to put her 2 girls through the University of the West Indies, one completing her master's in human resource development and the other a full-time lawyer. She also shared, though, her struggles of being a mother, a worker, and negotiating some of the complexities around gender, race, and class relations across both Jamaica and in Canada. But that conversation and story resonated with the themes of that inaugural event, of education, of the social and economic challenges faced in the regions, also of the issue of environment and health, and all the other issues that affect our well-being as peoples of the region. In 2023, we started with the hosting of another CCI event at the Cable campus in Barbados. And that year, we sort of zoned in on the issue of decoloniality and asking questions of what have we done around that type of scholarship? What are the kinds of questions that we're asking to move this agenda forward? But how do those meaningfully and tangibly direct action across Canada and the region? We left and came back in 2024 at McMaster University to speak about issues of climate crisis, resilience, and certainly alternative energy sources. That was a very thought-provoking conference, but it also allowed for us to think of alternative pathways and thinking outside the box. But we were also moved to think broader in our scope of what the research symposium meant. So this year, in 2026, we are meeting again to discuss the issue of security. How do we secure the futures of Canada and the Caribbean? Not security in the sense that we're thinking about looking at crime and looking at aspects of what it means for policing, but security as it relates to the social aspects, the history of trauma, the issue of well-being. We think about the political aspects around security and sovereignty. We think also of the cultural and social and, of course, technological aspects of what it means to be secure in Canada. and Caribbean futures. We have also given some balance in those discussions to the possibilities around artificial intelligence, citizenship, human rights, identity, looking at gender responsive aspects of educational reform. But we've also thought through aspects of what it means to be resisting, to be in solidarity, to think about the issue of reparations. This year, we've taken close attention to the aspect of identity, of culture, of values, of community. And what does that mean for us as we sail through the tides and winds of change? We have made visible, more importantly this year, the experiences and challenges of children and adolescents, not just in a thematic panel, but in a youth forum that brings in dialogue the issues of gender barriers, how that intersects with other factors to influence issues of educational access, educational participation, and outcomes. As we start this year's proceedings, we have also listened, and we are using the youth forum and doubling up on that opportunity to be live streamed, but also we have partnered with UNICEF Report to issue a poll and to invite young people across the Caribbean and Canada to air their voices on issues of education, participation, and outcome. To date, we've received over 800 responses from young persons across the regions. Our intention is to collate and to issue a policy brief that we would share with ministerial officials across the region. That's our first step. Today, as we start the launch of our 4th research symposium, I would like to leave with you and to share a thought that resonated for me within the launch of the CCI Symposium and of the CCI in 2020. It was shared by our co-chairs, in particular, Sir Beckles, and also resonated by Dr. Gervan Fearon, who's also our co-chair, founding co-chair at the time. And that was the history of Canada-Caribbean relations is one of rich heritage and exchange that has influenced global cooperation and resilience. The CCI and the work of the Research Symposium builds on that. It is not just about dialoguing around research ideas and also about institutional practice, but of finding and building systems that are strong enough and resilient enough to stand even in these times of uncertainty. And it is with this in mind that it is my honor to welcome, to bring his remarks, Sir Hilary Beckles, the Vice-Chancellor of the University of the West Indies.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. It is a tremendous honor to welcome you on this bright, sunny Caribbean morning, an unforgettable experience. So allow me then to recognize the protocol as observed, but to welcome our excellencies, our distinguished members of Parliament, all of my colleagues in the CCI, panelists, participants, welcome. You know, it's a special welcome to Professor Gervan Fearon, because I believe it was about 6 or 7 years ago when he visited with me at my office in Jamaica. At the time he was the Vice-Chancellor at Brock. And we thought that the two of us, an economist and myself, economic historian, that we ought to find a way to bring our institutions together. little did we know that the world was going to evolve the way it has in recent weeks. But we thought that one of the greatest bridges and expressions of multilateralism in the 20th century was the Canada-Caribbean relationship. But to those of us who have monitored the development of the post-colonial Caribbean, we can speak, I think, quite freely around the concept that Canada has undoubtedly been the most reliable development partner for this CARICOM area. And it was a time when Britain had denounced any responsibility for transitioning these colonies into independence. And they were told, well, if you want your independence, you can have it, but you are on your own. So get on with it. And the leaders of this region looked around and in search of reliable allies and comrades, and Canada put up its hand and became, I would say, the #1 development partner of this region. Gervan and I thought that this was worthy of celebration. It's such an important relationship in the history of this region, and indeed a hemisphere, that it should be celebrated, it should be studied, and critically, that we should find modalities to enable it to evolve from its mid-20th century roots into its 21st century formation. So this is how we started, with an idea. And I wish to send blessings to all of those persons who took that idea and ran with it. And now we have a vibrant, very seminal institution called the CCI. I'm very proud of this. So thank all of you for enabling this to happen. My task is to welcome you to the University of the West Indies. Now, we are sticklers for protocol. And I'm told that as the Vice-Chancellor of the Federal University, I shall go first. And then the principal of this campus should come second. Now, I want to say that that was not how the original program was written. But because I have a 10 o'clock phone call to make, I asked if they could reverse it. So, Principal, thank you. You can welcome them to your campus after I have welcomed them to the University of the West Indies. Have a wonderful time, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice-Chancellor. It is my distinct pleasure to introduce for remarks Professor Rosemary Belle Antoine, our Pro-Vice-Chancellor and Campus Principal of the St. Augustine Campus. Could you put your hands together for our Principal? Thank you.
Thank you, BBC Maynard, and our co-chair, Dr. Esnard. Good morning, everyone. As you can see, I'm a little under the weather, nothing to do with Carnival. So, my task to welcome you to this lovely St. Augustine campus. And I tend not to be one much for protocol, but I do want to especially welcome our Honorable Senator, Dr. Natalie Chaitan-Maharaj, also alumnus, and to thank the governments for always collaborating so well with us. We really appreciate it. I also want to recognize our High Commissioner, Michael Callan, who I met for the first time this morning. I know you're relatively new to Trinidad and Tobago as well. And Ambassador Bobbery, Professor Erica Sturridge, who's representing Professor Lincoln Edwards, I'm told. Of course, Dr. Gervan Fearon, whom I met last week in Jamaica. And our own Vice-Chancellor, who's coming back in a minute. All our distinguished colleagues from Canada and the Caribbean. And you may have noticed that I left out a very important person, co-chair of the CCI, Vice-Chancellor Rhonda McEwen. And I left her for last because I have a little secret. We were just about to talk, we were talking about it before. We share a few special things in common. I wasn't sure if she knew, but I know that she knew some of it. You see, we went to the same school, St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph, not far from here. And I first learned about her actually from a school bulletin, which was celebrating us both. I think it was Facebook. I don't know if you saw it. And also, we were appointed leaders of our campus the very same year, actually within months of each other. And more to come. We are both the first female leaders of our universities. It's a bit of a disgrace, actually. So I've been wanting to meet her for some time. I'm only sorry, as I said, I'm a little under the weather, but I've been looking forward to it. I told Prof. Fearon that I had to meet her when I came to Trinidad. So we're really happy to welcome you. The symposium continues to provide a very important platform to address critical issues affecting both Canada and the Caribbean. And as you heard, Canada and the Caribbean, and indeed the University of the West Indies, we share really close diplomatic, cultural, academic ties. Had a long and fruitful relationship with Canada. I myself have some personal linkages. I was fortunate for many years to be part of an international 5-member team on labor law based at McGill. So I was in Canada often. And also another strange coincidence, I suppose, is that when I was on the Inter-American Commission of Human Rights in Washington, I was the rapporteur for Canada. So I probably used to give Canada a little bit of a hard time because I had to do state visits on human rights for Afro-descendants and Indigenous peoples. But I do feel there is a very close relationship. And we were very pleased this campus to welcome Brock University, the co-founder, to the campus. I do think the theme this year is very vital, both for Canada and for our region, as we grapple with ongoing security challenges, security in the broadest sense of the word, and new and emerging threats. And I wanted to pause to offer our condolences to Canada on the recent school shooting at the Tumbler Ridge Secondary School in British Columbia earlier this month. And those tragedies do remind us, however, that no matter how large or how small, we are none of us immune to evolving dangers. But of course, small island developing states like ours continue to be plagued with traditional security concerns, like the crime, which I'm told you don't want to talk about too much this time. Illegal migration, vulnerabilities in our borders, and of course compounded by the climate change that probably we witnessed this morning. Technological and cyber vulnerabilities, mental health, cultural erosion, and identity-based insecurity. Some dangers are, of course, intangible, and they have to do with our increasing vulnerabilities in what is sometimes, one can't help but feel, is an increasingly hostile world, a global space that we live in. And I think it's very important for us to work with genuine friends like Canada to confront and to overcome these challenges, to ensure a safer and a more equitable world for all of our peoples. I do believe that both Canada and the Caribbean, and by extension the UWE, we share a worldview, and that presents very ripe possibilities for a positive future. And I know that you'll be tackling many of these issues in the symposium. So I'm looking forward to the dialogue and hopefully some recommendations. hearing that there's to be a policy paper, which is great. And I do share in the pride in the way that this CCI has developed with UE and Brock University originally, and now it's this really important platform for advancing cooperative, evidence-based solutions for our countries and our regions. In this, what I consider to be a pivotal moment, we are bound by a shared obligation to collaboratively forge tools, policies, and systems that will ensure the safety and well-being of our populations in this very unpredictable world. And our academic community is actively shaping regional and sometimes global discussions. We have been here at UE with some leading voices on some key issues, including climate change, including AI ethics. We have our own vision of non-discriminatory indigenous type of AI developing on this campus from the Faculty of Engineering. Social justice, I believe we have been leading voices. Reparations, of course, which our dear Vice-Chancellor, who is undisputably the thought leader there, will speak on this conference. And culture, now finishing Carnival, we can't forget the culture. This is the land where the only new musical instrument of the 20th century was invented. It's Speedan, not to mention, of course, the reggae from Jamaica. And culture, as you know, is a powerful force in society. The Institute does allow our scholars to extend their influence by collaborating closely with Canadian counterparts, institutions, policymakers, and vice versa. And in these very challenging times, when misinformation threatens democracy, climate change accelerates, technology often outpaces regulation, and social inequalities remain pronounced, the role of universities like ours, and we are a developmental university, we were created for that, becomes increasingly vital. I don't think we can afford to be just passive observers. We are the architects of resilience in our region. And I continue to believe, I may be a little biased, but I think the world needs informed and objective policymakers and leaders now more than ever. And where better to find them than at our universities. So securing our future is not merely a policy goal, but a fundamental moral obligation. Our young people deserve a future where security is not just a fleeting promise, but a strong foundation, a future where we can be resilient to climate change, where artificial intelligence amplifies development instead of widening the chasm of inequalities. So on behalf of the St. Augustine campus, I warmly welcome you once again. I extend a special thank you to all of the organizers for making it a reality. I wish you a very productive, inspiring, and solution-filled symposium. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Principal. I like the idea we are bound by a shared obligation. And it's also wonderful to see that we have reunited two long-lost friends from the same school. So that is really good to see. With no further ado, I'm going to invite our remarks from our next speaker, the Honourable Senator Dr. Natialie Chaitan-Maharaj, who is the Parliamentary Secretary, Ministry of the People for Social Development and Family Services. So could I invite you, Senator, to give your remarks? Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. Permit me to stand on the established protocols, else I think the salutation list will be longer than my remarks. So you've not just reunited alum from St. Joseph. I'm from St. Joseph, San Fernando, and an alum of UWI, Mona, and St. Augustine. I'm a little sad to see that CCI has only recently come into existence. It would have served well for me when I was in school, and my own sister went to University of Toronto. But better late than never, and I'm happy to see the progress that it's making. It is a privilege for me to bring greetings on behalf of the Ministry of the People, Social Development and Family Services, the Government of Trinidad and Tobago, and of course my line minister, Ms. Vandana Mohit. Today, as I join you at the opening of your symposium, I extend our sincere appreciation to your organizers, the researchers, and the participants with your commitment to inquiry and collaboration as it continues to strengthen our region. Your theme this year, Securing Our Future, Positioning Our Region to Address Traditional and Emerging Security Challenges, notably speaks to a reality that we all recognize. But security today extends far beyond borders and law enforcement. It encompasses economic stability, social resilience, food and health systems, climate preparedness, and the well-being of our most vulnerable citizens, which is near and dear to me and to our ministry. As a region, we continue to confront long-standing challenges like poverty, inequality, and social vulnerabilities that can undermine community stability. At the same time, we face emerging threats like climate change, digital risks, and public health emergencies, and the complex social impacts of global economic shifts. These issues demand not only strong institutions like UWI, like many of the other Canadian universities gathered here, but they also need to help us to inform policy, to innovate research, and to sustain regional global cooperation. In TNT, our government has understood these challenges and put systems in place to respond to the challenges in a direct and comprehensive manner with clarity and resolve. From the perspective of social development, securing our future requires investing in people. Strong families, empowered youth, and inclusive social protective systems form the foundation of safe and resilient societies. When we reduce vulnerability and expand opportunities, we strengthen national and regional security in its broadest and most meaningful sense. This symposium provides a valuable space for dialogue, evidence-based analysis, and the exchange of ideas that can shape practical solutions. The partnerships fostered here and the friendships made here will shape practical solutions. Partnerships will be between academia, governments, civil society, and are essential to position our region to respond effectively for both present and future challenges. As we look ahead, let us remain guided by a shared commitment to build societies that are not only secure, but also compassionate and resilient. The challenges before us are complex, but the strength of our region lies in the ability to unite for knowledge, policy, and purpose. Together, let us move forward with resolve, confident that through partnership and innovation, we can shape a future that is stronger, safer, and more prosperous for all our people. By working together, we can ensure that the Caribbean region is prepared not only to withstand challenges, but to thrive in the face of them. Again, I will commend the CCI for convening this forum, this symposium. I wish you a productive, successful, engaging day, and I thank you for allowing me to be present.
Thank you so much, Senator. We thank you for your endorsement of the importance of the CCI. We can never wish for anything more than to see that our governments are looking at the kind of work and the partnerships that we're doing here and how it can inform policy and how we're all contributing to the improvement, certainly, of the region. So thank you very much for your words. And without further ado, I'm going to bring up our co-chair, Dr. Rhonda McEwen, who is President and Vice-Chancellor of Victoria University in the University of Toronto. So please give her a warm welcome. Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you so much, Sandrea. I'm going to also bring welcome, but so many people said so many great things. I'm just going to say distinguished guests, friends, colleagues, thanks for being here with us today. Welcome to this 4th annual CCI Symposium. It's important because it is a research symposium, really bringing some of the best minds from across the Caribbean region and what I'll call today the region of Canada, made up of all these provinces. So in many ways, we are 2 regions when we think of it that way. I also bring greetings from a vibrant and very, very warm population of Canadians who have strong ties to the Caribbean. And I am the Caribbean co-chair. My co-chair for the Caribbean region is actually Dr. Lincoln Edwards, and he's not able to come, but he has sent someone to speak on his behalf. But what I want to say, what a privilege to open this on what is my campus, my original campus, which is the UWI St. Augustine. I have, as I drove in today, I recall that I come to Trinidad all the time. I'm always here. Can't get rid of me. But I never come back to campus. So it was really quite wonderful to drive in and see all the changes. I'm trying to not calculate how many years it has been since I've been on the campus, but I'm guessing it is well over 30 years. And a few things have changed and some things didn't. So as I drove in on the shuttle bus, I went, oh, there's JFK Lecture Theatre. That's where I did economics. And oh, C Hall is still here. And that's where all the Jamaicans would walk from engineering back to their hall. And we would say C Hall and not recognize it was Canada Hall. And then I found out that there was a connection between UWI and Canada, even as far as the residents here on this campus. But as an undergraduate student, UWI St. Augustine certainly shaped my rigorous and deeply affirming academic journey. I was supported here at the UWI campus by faculty and peers who believed in my potential from very early, encouraging me to think critically and to imagine futures where, what could be was always attainable. The training and mentorship I received here at UWI, some of the best in class. I have 4 degrees, my first beginning with UWI, and I tell people many times I did a degree in every country just to see what it would be like in other places. You never know. And I do feel that my grounding at UWI prepared me for everything that would come from there. This sense of confidence, this sense of responsibility has been enduring, but it goes beyond my experience, and it really does scale up to the experience between our 2 regions of Canada and the Caribbean. When we thought about what the theme would be, a tremendous conference was run, and I want to recognize my colleague, Dr. Juliet Daniel from McMaster University, who carried quite a lot of the last conference that we had in Canada. And we thought, climate, how do you beat that topic? That was perfect for the moment. We had a meeting with Global Affairs Canada just to discuss interesting ideas that the Canadians would want to see discussed here in the symposium. And from that conversation, the theme came up, this theme that we're going to explore today. That was over a year ago. We had no idea what would happen next. I'm not sure my colleagues at Global Affairs Canada predicted either that we would encounter in the next 12 to 13 months one of the most tremendous challenges to security for both of us. In Canada, with many claims of what would happen to Canada as an additional state for another country, and for the Caribbean region, the tremendous challenges to security that have come since then. All to say that I think this is a really good moment for this symposium. I'm very encouraged. When I spoke to Dr. Esnard, I said, how many submissions came in? And she said it was tremendous from both parts, both Canada and Caribbean. Great scholarship coming through on this topic. And I'm excited to sit here with you and listen to our colleagues who have been researching in these areas. Over the next 2 days, we will engage in scholarship that is grounded both in bold but also deeply attentive lived realities in Canada and in the Caribbean. The insights and brilliance that will be shared here hold real potential for transformation, not only within our regions, but I think in the broader conversations that are shaping our world. The themes we will explore include economic, social security, digital governance, cultural reparation, mental health, youth futures, and more. And they remind us that the challenges we face are complex, but also very interconnected. The theme, as I said, really talks about the fact that we can bring scholarship, we can bring government, we can also bring those who are in the economic sectors, who are part of, as the senator said, the sort of social responsibility for people in our regions. I think these are things that come together in this theme very, very beautifully. And at a time when the global uncertainty can feel overwhelming, and I can tell you in the Caribbean, I know you feel that uncertainty, but in Canada, it is equally there. Our students are very concerned. Our faculty, our staff are very worried about what is happening in the world. This is a time where this kind of gathering, where we will be challenged by some of the material, it will still affirm the power of collaboration, dialogue, and shared purpose. So this symposium is the result of extraordinary effort. I wish to extend sincere thanks to the organizing committee and to all of those who worked tirelessly, even up to last night, I gather, to bring this event to life. So in particular, I want to acknowledge Dr. Talia Esnard for her leadership and intellectual stewardship. Lisa Hamilton, so I'm going to say Brathwaite properly, but you know, from where I'm from, we say Brathwaite. So, you know, Lisa Hamilton Brathwaite for her commitment, coordination, and care. I also thank the local teams at UWI St. Augustine and all the partners who dedicated themselves to making today happen. And I thank all of you online who are watching us and will watch this many times. I have a feeling the discussions here will resonate for some time. So as we begin, I encourage us all to listen generously and to engage thoughtfully and to remain attentive to how the conversations that start here might move beyond this space and into action. The work shared over the coming days will shape policy, inform practice, and strengthen our institutions, but more importantly, deepen our understanding and build lasting connections. So I thank you for being here. I look forward to the conversations ahead and the next 2 days. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. McEwen. I'm going to say that I like the charge you've given us. Conversation to action. So the next person bringing remarks, I'm going to say, could I invite Professor Erica Sturridge, who is representing Professor Lincoln Edwards, who couldn't join us today, but we hope that you are watching online and you are here with us in spirit. Who is the president of the Northern Caribbean University and who is, as we know, a co-chair to the CCI. So thank you so much, Professor Sturridge. I invite you to bring remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, PVC Maynard. Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. It is on great pleasure for me to bring remarks to the CCI from our 24th president, Professor Lincoln Edwards. He is certainly a great supporter of this institute, of the actions and the conversations and this symposium, which is dear to his heart and to NCU as an institution. NCU has, from its very inception, committed itself to provide opportunities for those who have talent but no access. Our institution has pivoted itself to the forefront of the conversation for those without access.
So initiatives such as restoring every student's confidence, the rescue program, is one such pivotal effort that NCU has engaged in with collaborations with partners locally and internationally. Another program that we embarked on was to join the call and to get support that guarantors should be removed from the student loan process. And we have seen where the Jamaican government has actually codified that into law. It shows the power of the collective voice, the power of joining our forces together in partnership, where our dialogue and conversations can make significant differences and impact not just our region, but extend beyond the shores and go global. The Canada Caribbean Partnership is one such important effort. And I've seen where we have 14 members, and I know this will grow and expand beyond this number. This institute is very important in ensuring that there is dialogue without bias, dialogue that is collaborative, but yet engaging all the diversity, ensuring inclusivity. Therefore, Northern Caribbean University is certainly dedicated to ensuring that our researchers, our faculty can join with those of not just the region, but those in Canada to look at our traditional problems and challenges, those that are emerging, and that we chart a way forward through our collective voice. Therefore, it is important for us today to engage all the different diverse perspectives that will emerge from these discussions over the 2 days. NCU, on behalf of Professor Lincoln Edwards, supports the CCI, and we hope to engage in scholarship, student exchange, faculty interaction, and to continue the conversations beyond the borders geographically and extend globally to have a joint collective effort that continues to impact the world at large. On behalf of our president, Professor Lincoln Edwards, I greet the members of the panel who have worked hard and long to bring this institute not only into the public fora, but to bring this research symposium into a practical being that engages even the youth. We are therefore pleased to partner with all the institutions of the CCI, and I wish everyone a great conversation over the next 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Sturridge, and please extend our gratitude to Professor Lincoln Edwards for his continuous support. It is at this time that we would like to have a cultural item, and I would invite our staff to assist with the moving of the table for the stage. Yes. And while that is happening, do let me introduce the dance team. It is coordinated by one of our instructors, Miss Dabelina Paul, and it will be performed by 4 students, first-year students of our campus within the Department of Creative and Festival Arts. They include Jade Bishop, Khadija Ick, Janelle Baptist, and Amelia Caldero. Please welcome our UE dance troupe.
How's the people to know this one? Needs to know that. You should all the way back, as far as we can go. Now it's all to the other side. There's much time. Oh, that's Thank you very much for that wonderful dance interlude. And I've noticed our table's gone all the way back here. So I'm going to now invite Professor Gervan Fearon, the co-founder of the CCI, but also president of George Brown Polytechnic, to come and give his remarks. Thank you for putting the table back, but I was going to invite President Fearon to say if he would like to do his performance before he starts his remarks. But put your hands together. Thank you so much, President Fearon. can do a bit of tap dancing.
Of course. With that, I think that this is an opportunity to again recognize the incredible performance that we saw a moment ago. So it won't be my performance, but it is an opportunity to recognize theirs. So let's give them a hand again. Without question, we have so many influential dignitaries here, individuals who've contributed in their own fields and the likes. And as was stated, the protocol's already done, but also to be able to recognize the incredible vote of confidence by the presence of so many individuals, both from the region of the Caribbean and then the region of Canada, if I may say, as well. And it's just wonderful. But I would also like to maybe give a little bit of a context similar to Sir Hilary Beckles' comments. And a number of years ago, almost 8 years ago, when we had a little bit of a coffee discussion in his office, and we had the recognition that there were so many ties between Canada and the Caribbean, individuals who share not only a history but a heritage. And one of the recognition was that there weren't institutional capacity to be able to bond and to link those ties. So many leaders of the Caribbean have studied in Canada, and so many individuals in Canada have investments and relationships in the Caribbean. And consequently, the people-to-people relationship was definitely clear. The institution-to-institution relationships in terms of teaching and scholarships and the likes was clear. But it wasn't clear what was the nation-to-region type relationships that allowed not only the kind of discussions around scholarship and research and the likes, but being able to bring amazing minds to the challenges that face Canada and the Caribbean. But maybe to me, maybe more important, that we had not anticipated the kind of changes that would be happening at a global level that we see today, where constructs around, I might say, quote, world order and sometimes world disorder, where we might see a phrase that I've coined recently, the idea of soft power change to hard, the idea where partnerships turns to transaction. And that means that at a global level, it's so very, very important for regions, for countries to be an exemplar of what is possible between people, to be able to build on shared history, shared relationship, people-to-people relationships, to be able to be an exemplar, to inspire humanity, to provide options as to how we solve problems and how we build a humanity that when we think of a world of AI and the likes, that without a construct around what we mean by ourselves as humans and shared realities, that we will be certainly challenged in a world that is fastly growing and outpacing our capacity to both have institutions and human philosophies, and that we'll be able to cope in this world that we face. So 8 years ago, when we had the discussion around the idea of CCI, we didn't anticipate this world. But what I also want to be able to say is that vision without action, without a construct of results, becomes a bit vacuous. And where is that action? In seeing all of you here represent the action to vision. And as a result, we applauded the performers, but I'd like to really take the moment for all of you to applaud and give an applaud to all of you who are here in action for what is now CCI. So let's recognize that. There's some data point that I think is important for us to recognize, and there's a part of me as I looked at the data this morning, I wanted to challenge whether I was and the data I was looking at was actually right. One data point by way of example, Canada, a population of just around 40 million. Interestingly enough, the Caribbean region population in total around 40 million. And consequently, quite often, when we think of individual countries as opposed to constructs of region, we sometimes think that there's an imbalance in the relationship, but there's probably no greater balance in a relationship than we see as represented by CCI. A balance not only in terms of people and culture and history, but even a balance in terms of population. The second balance that I think is really important to have a pivot reality around is the economic and socioeconomic realities that we both face. We both face reality that historically not only colony but resource-based economies with markets that had historical dependencies that were forged over hundreds of years and the like. And as we think of the topic, the idea of securing not only securing path, but securing the future, we also recognize that the future is going to be dependent on our ability to diversify our economies, our relationships, and the likes. And in that sense as well, there's so many foundational realities, and I'll give just a few as really quick examples. Within the region, there's no question that a interesting energy reality is emerging, and not the energy reality that we sometimes look towards in the previous paradigm, but the energy of electricity. The energy of electricity will power AI. It will power manufacturing, it will power services, it will power a huge linkage. And within the region, what is also recognized is the gap in terms of electricity production. Canada is a leading nation in terms of modular nuclear, in terms of liquid natural gas. That then means that the idea of developing that kind of infrastructure could be sporadic, it could be incidental, or it could be strategic. And consequently, when I think about the definition of what the CCI does in bringing scholars together, it's not only scholars together around great scholarship, absolutely important, but it's also scholarship around great solutions to being able to secure the social economic future of the peoples, of the societies. And that means then that it really dictates looking beyond one moment. So 8 years ago, 7 years ago, 6 years ago, Sir Hilary and I had a definition of a vision of what could be possible. I would also challenge all of us to be able to have a vision around what is possible through a strategic partnership between Canada and the region, articulated not only in terms of vision, but in terms of deliberate policy action that allows for a long-term approach to considerations. And I just gave one example around energy, where you have those kinds of items that are multi-year, multi-decade constructs that you can't do if you're doing them as simply one-off. And back to the start, the CCI for me was not only about Canada and the region, not only about Canada and the Caribbean, but it was about the idea that what we build together can be an example to others around the world. We have the former Canadian ambassador to the UN, and I had the honor of being at the UN in New York and being welcomed along with a delegation by, I'm still going to say ambassador, Ambassador Bob Ray, former Ambassador Bob Ray. I'm going to do a quick side story, if I may. I worked with, I was at Treasury Board Ministry of Finance, and at the time, Mr. Bob Ray was the premier. So it was really amazing to have had a number of points of intersection. But one of the things that I always found about the UN was all these countries. And I asked myself, with all the challenges, who do they look to to inspire possibilities given all the challenges. And I would hope that the CCI provides an example of possibilities of institutions, of regions, of partnership, that all those countries, when they stand back and say, who do we look towards as people-to-people relationships and what can be done, that your work then is inspiring to others in a very, very troubled world where individuals are looking for examples of possibilities. And with that, as you present, as you participate, as you engage, as you expand in years to come, that know that you are a part of putting action to vision and then putting action to solution, and that we have a world of people around us, not only our students, but all those regions, all those people we serve one way or another, that look to each of you and each of us towards inspiration for possibility, that they can be inspired about a world that will have a great future through your work and through the actions that you do. So again, welcome, thank you, and thank you for the honor of being here as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Fearon. Another powerful message around vision and action. And it really does help us to remember why we are here. And thank you for reminding us of the partnership, the importance of that partnership, the recognition of people and our value, and how we can certainly work together as an example to the world of how a true partnership across continents can work. So thank you very much. Our next speaker bringing remarks is Mr. Michael Callan, who is the High Commissioner of Canada to Trinidad and Tobago. So, Your Excellency, I will invite you to bring your remarks. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Esnard. I say it's a hard act to follow because there's a lot of content, a lot of substance, a lot of meaning with the dance, a lot of passion, a lot of emotion, a lot of culture that's shared in some of those remarks. And really, honestly, what I want to do is just go away and think about it for a little bit. But you'll allow me to carry on. And first by standing on established protocols, but also just opening by saying, what a privilege it is to be in a room like this, where so many interests and shared interests have come together. I know in many country contexts, it can take a lot of work to generate this type of interest, but to inherit this legacy of cooperation, it really makes all of Canada's work in Trinidad and Tobago and across the broader region that much more enjoyable and impactful. So thank you for that. And you should note too that academic spaces like these, matter more than ever, right? They're among the few places left where ideas can be tested seriously, where complexity is not feared, and where we can take a broader vantage point in a world that often feels consumed by the narrow and the immediate. The world is changing. Lots has and will be said about that over the coming days. But of course, what do we do when things are unpredictable, unsettling, destabilizing? What do we do in those moments of uncertainty? We go back to what we know and what we can rely on. So what do we know? We know that the connections between Canada and since Trinidad and Tobago run deep. Dr. McEwen, I think last night we were chatting a little bit about the legacy of the Canadian Presbyterians and the impact that they've left on the educational climate and leaving some of the most capable and impressive schools in this country. We chatted even that trade predates the independence of both of our countries. And over 200 years ago, where Canada would send lumber and saltfish down south in exchange for rum and sugar, among other things. But that lumber, that Canadian lumber, it actually made its way into some of the core foundational buildings of the city of Port of Spain. So on many occasions, I've liked to refer to the fact that Canada is part of the bones and part of the foundation of this city and this country. We also know that as we increasingly feel pressure from new tariff regimes, aggressive security postures, and the dismantling of an order, that has shaped how we interact in this world, that our sense of sovereignty feels under pressure. Some of the rules or assumptions that backed previous agreements and decisions seemingly no longer apply. So our response shouldn't be surprising either. We know that when core questions of sovereignty are threatened, the reflex is to bolster the space that we have to make decisions independently. This means ensuring that we have real choices, that we're not beholden to any one partner, that we have the economic and political avenues open to us that best serve the interests and values of our citizens. For Caribbean states, that might mean focusing on strengthening economic sovereignty, expanding opportunities for sustainable growth, and increasing their collective influence. For Canada, in addition to strengthening our domestic economy and national defense capabilities, we are focused on diversifying and deepening our trade partnerships globally, while working with other powers to shape cooperative alternatives to pure great power competition. Now, there are plenty of nuances in how to articulate these collections of interests, but at their core, we see that in many profound ways, Canadian and Caribbean interests are shared. We all want to diversify our economies, to increase trade relationships and deepen partnerships that support our shared security interests. So we know what we want to achieve, but of course, what needs to occupy our days is how to achieve it. So let me come back down to earth a little bit and share a few observations on the practical actions that Canada is pursuing in Trinidad and Tobago. And I won't go into all the fine details of some of the more typical engagements we've worked on. We recently signed an omnibus MOU to allow government-to-government contracting through the Canadian Commercial Corporation. We have a variety of projects underway with our anti-crime capacity building program. We continue to support businesses through our Trade Commissioner service. And we have a steady stream of artists, athletes, and performers visiting that we work with to project the links between Canada and Caribbean, between Canadian and Caribbean culture. These actions are all important and make up the standard fare of bilateral diplomatic engagement. But in addition to the above, there are three very practical engagements that I wanted to share as well, as they warrant attention at the regional level. On trade, some have suggested that we could look to economic agreements to append to the Canada-CARICOM strategic partnership. With the Carib-Can agreement already in place, I'm not sure how much more room or need there is for new accords, but I appreciate the discussion and look forward to hearing which direction it takes. While we're doing that, I'm keen to get on with business. In September this year, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Commerce is organizing a trade mission to Canada. Now, for those who are familiar with Prime Minister Carney's speech at Davos, you might be familiar with his reference to variable geometry. To me, it's in that spirit that it seems like an opportune moment to rally interested partners and build this trade delegation into a wider Caribbean-Canada trade mission. It would be the first of its kind and would draw more engagement than any single nation visit on its own. A collective mission would allow conversations that stretch up and down supply chains, address regulatory obstacles, and introduce new commercial contacts that expand options for trade and investment. I could see the first Caribbean-Canada trade mission being an excellent moment to talk about the role of Canadian chambers of commerce in the region, whether there are appetites for national chambers or perhaps an overarching organization at the regional level, a Canadian-Caribbean Chamber of Commerce. On security. And we know that many of the illicit activities across the region impact multiple countries. The trafficking of people, arms, and narcotics are not border bound. Despite these obvious connections, we have yet to have a regional assessment of how and where Canada is best placed to support our shared security interests. The Royal Canadian Mounted Police are engaged bilaterally. Our Department of National Defense is engaged bilaterally, and support flows to national police and militaries, to CARICOM impacts, and to the regional security system, but rarely does it do so in a coordinated regional manner. In Trinidad and Tobago, we're bringing the Toronto Police Services into the conversation, given the intelligence and capabilities that they have to share, but we still have some work to do to identify where our support can yield most impact across the region. Not all Canadian support should flow at the regional level, but more must. And even our bilateral support should be aligned with the regional understanding of our collective security challenges. Here, I turn to some of you in this room to help us develop this understanding and translate it into practical interventions. Canada is reinvesting in our military capabilities domestically, and DND's ability to engage internationally will surely grow over the years to come. Now, I've mentioned an economic proposal, a gap in our approach to security and defense, and there's a third point I'd like to raise as connective tissue between these and other sectors. Indeed, this last issue, I believe, is Canada's strongest comparative advantage in the region. It's a known feature of our presence in the Caribbean, but in an increasingly competitive global context that suggests that it's been badly taken for granted. The Caribbean community in Canada is vibrant, organized, and well-connected. In Trinidad and Tobago, it's almost impossible to have a meeting without somebody in the room having a connection to Canada. I often take the occasion to halt a room and just pose the question and see how many hands rise. But in this room, I think the conclusion's already foretold. But we know that so many people have studied in Canada, they have family in Canada, they've done business in Canada, their kids are studying there, and that this applies equally to business executives, members of cabinet, the top echelons of government, as much as farm and service workers. Trinbagonians are intimately connected to Canada. And Trinbagonians don't only have a connection, they value this connection. They're proud of the links to Canada and its values, and they want to stay connected. Despite having thousands of Canadian alumni, dual citizens, and frequent travelers with business and cultural interests in both countries, up to recently, we didn't know necessarily where they were. And outside of personal contacts, didn't have a reliable way to get in contact with them. I don't want to be overly dramatic, but this to me sounds like diplomatic malpractice. We can't advance our diplomatic goals amongst government officials alone. There is a sea of Canadian energy, connections, ideas, and networks out there that we need to harness, cultivate, shape, and employ. A number of months ago, we launched a Canada Club for Trinidad and Tobago. It's a big tent group where we've invited anyone with Canadian connections to sign up. We now have a network of nearly 1,500 people who are keen to follow, engage, and support Canadian-linked activities in Trinidad and Tobago. And it will take more structure and support over the coming months and years before it becomes truly self-sustaining. But I'm convinced that it offers great potential to drive connections in a way that we cannot do on our own. And now I raise this not as a piece of show and tell, but to reflect an approach to diplomacy that is more accessible and reflective central to what our countries are trying to achieve together. I also raise this as a request. We want you and your students to be part of this club, of this movement, of this moment where we're re-examining and redefining our relationships and how to bring the best of that Canada has to offer to the region and to the world. So this is a special gathering of important minds at a critical time. And as I thank CCI for pulling it all together, let me say how glad I am to be walking this path together with you, our academic partners. And of course, not as observers and not just as commentators, but as central protagonists on this shared front line that we're collectively holding to reinforce the sovereignty, the security, and prosperity that Canadians and citizens of the Caribbean deserve. Thank you very much.
There we go. Thank you very much, High Commissioner. It's great to hear the joint activities that are taking place between Canada and the Caribbean. I know you're based here in Trinidad, but of course this will spill over to lots of other Caribbean countries. And it really does work together in the spirit of partnership. So not only is the CCI doing this, but we can also see that our governments are certainly working together towards those shared values that are huge diaspora from this region resides certainly in Canada.